Good morning and welcome to Tim Simmons. Who's joining us from the US in San Bruno, I believe. Tim, this morning?
Correct. Good morning, Ravi. It's great to be here.
Good morning. And, a brief introduction to Tim. He's the Senior Vice President and Chief Product Officer at Sam's Club. Sam's Club is a subsidiary of Walmart, but probably among their largest subsidiaries within the group, and has over 600 stores across North America. And they're big box, even bigger than Walmart, I think, the general Walmart store. And Tim is responsible for product strategy there, product management, even the operations transformation, and most important, I think, the user experience for their customers as they walk into the store. Welcome, Tim. Welcome to the NASSCOM Product Conclave. We're delighted to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Great. And, Tim, just a little further introduction. You've been obviously an industry expert in retail now, but prior to that, you were in advertising and consulting with a myriad of industry leaders and bring vast experience to this role, both from obviously retail now, but a range of industries earlier, right? And you're a proud graduate, I must say, of BYU, both at the undergraduate level and at the MBA level, right? So welcome.
That's right.
Great.
Thank you so much.
So I think, Tim, this is the product conclave that NASSCOM runs each year. It's targeted at product entrepreneurs and product thinking and product execution and delivery. And so, I'd like to start off first off with asking you what you do in your role as Chief Product Officer, right, at one of the largest retail chains in the world.
Yeah, it's a really big but really gratifying role. At Sam's Club, as you mentioned, we have around 600 clubs. We call our stores clubs. We are a membership model, so it's a warehouse model. So we don't have a lot of shelves. We tend to be a pallet-driven business. It's highly efficient from an operations perspective. And our membership model is crucial to us. So you need to be a member to shop in our clubs or to shop online. You can shop if you're not a member, but it's a better experience if you are a member. And so that membership and how we drive acquisition into our member base, how we drive a fantastic, delightful experience throughout the membership, and then how we drive renewal is crucial to what I do as the Chief Product Officer. There is a large portfolio of products that we work on. We have a portfolio, obviously, of our digital products, so of our .com, of our mobile, our Scan and Go product, which we'll probably talk about more a little bit later on. But we also have a number of products that are internal facing, products that we create for our associates, whether it be our merchants, or our finance team, but also even our associates who work in the club and what the tools are that they use to make their jobs easier and to create a great member experience in the club. So even if I think across a very broad portfolio of products, really at the heart of it, it is about that membership and how do we delight our members at every step of the way. So I run a large team, and as you said, it's focused on both product managers, but it also is a large team of designers, UX, UI designers, as well as researchers. And our core focus is to solve problems that ultimately result in a fantastic member experience.
Got it. And that's not very dissimilar from almost any e-commerce venture in some sense. Today, in terms of the life cycle, I think it's really omni-channel. You kind of tackle all the challenges, both in physical retail and in the digital world as well, right? And the opportunities, I must say.
Yeah, correct. Including the supply chain to fulfill on that omni-channel experience. That's another very robust part of the products that we manage is all around fulfillment through our supply chain and how we can remove friction there and deliver as fast as possible at as low a cost as possible. That's also a big part of what we do.
Got it. Perfect. So I think this is a good segue to, understanding how Sam's Club was impacted by the pandemic, what y'all did, especially maybe accelerated during this period. I know you mentioned briefly the scan and ship product and the scan and go products. I think both of them came to life even more than ever during this last period, right? So maybe you could talk about that, how you've been innovating in those areas. Because I think it has a lot of relevance to anybody in retail today, right?
Yeah, I believe it does. As we got into the pandemic, I believe we really were focused on the right things prior to the pandemic. The way we think about a product mindset here at Sam's Club, it really is all about falling in love with the problem and how we put the member at the center of how we solve that problem. And I think we had a lot of the right problems that we were tackling prior to the pandemic. We focus very much on having quality items at a very low price, and then trying to make accessibility to those as convenient as possible, regardless of the channel. And we were focused on all those things prior to the pandemic. But with the pandemic, some interesting themes emerged. Obviously, safety was crucial for both our associates and our members. And along with safety came some other interesting concepts along the lines of, well, it's safer if I don't have to come into the club. It's safer if I can stay in my car and get everything that I want and get my entire order, or stay at home, for example. So we were focused on those things before, but what I'd say the pandemic did was accelerated dramatically all of our efforts to service our members in channels that made it easier and made it safer for our members to shop, as well as for our associates to work. So, for example, curbside, we had a version. Well, actually, we had a club pickup program prior to the pandemic, but members had to come in to pick up their order. As soon as the pandemic hit, we, in many cases, literally raced to stand up a curbside program where members could just drive up conveniently and our associates would come and load their order in their car. We launched that in a matter of weeks. And so it was a Herculean effort by some great product managers, some great designers and engineers to stand that experience up and make sure that it was convenient on all aspects, whether it was placing the order, paying for the order, but then also picking a slot or a time as to when the member would want to come and pick it up. And then once they got to the club, checking in, knowing where to go, and then checking in to let us know that they were here so we could bring that order to them. All of those efforts dramatically accelerated. And then right on the heels of that came delivery to home. Because to my point about safety, it is safer during a pandemic to stay in your car versus come in the club. But how about if you just get to stay in your home? So we leveraged some innovative last mile solutions working across the enterprise with our Walmart sister company to create a fantastic delivery experience that we've now launched across all of our clubs. So I would say, the pandemic really accelerated a lot of those things that we were working on. And you can use the word safety, which is very much what it was as a part of the pandemic, but it's also the same thing as convenience. And I would say that we've really doubled down on that since the pandemic and accelerated everything that we do along those lines of convenience and making access very, very simple for our members.
Got it. And I get that theme throughout, the convenience and the experience, right? They drive pretty much everything y'all are doing in some sense. Yeah. So, can you tell us how, when you're experimenting with something new, your flow, or for instance, this curbside, how did you all design? How did you develop? How did you kind of deploy and then scale it out? And, you got hundreds of stores to deliver this in. Walk us through that experience. And you said it was literally a couple of months in which you did this, right? In this case, at least, scaling it up.
Yes. We follow a process that I think would be pretty familiar to people who've been in the product management space for a while. We do spend a lot of time up front on ensuring that we're solving the right problem. Again, like I said, we love to fall in love with the problem. So we spend a lot of time up front making sure that we've got the right problem that we're solving. After that, we do really robust discovery where our research teams will come in and really uncover all of the insights that we need before we jump into any kind of a solution. Once we do that, we do design thinking sessions. We're really big on the design thinking approach. We love to diverge and go really big and blue sky before we converge onto something. It really helps just open the mind and make sure that we're not constraining ourselves to potential solutions. But once we do converge on something, we're very much about low fidelity prototypes, getting to an MVP that we can test and get data on as soon as possible. And then once we've got an MVP and we've launched it, we've got some data, we understand that it's a viable MVP, then we run a simple stage gate process where we'll pilot in 1 or 2 live environment clubs. And once we have data that says that that's working well and confirms that it's meeting a member need or the members are having a good experience with it, then we typically will go to a market or a region, and then eventually we'll scale to the chain. So with Curbside, we followed that very process. We just did it very fast, largely through putting extra resources on it because it was such a high priority project.
Got it. And Tim, can you talk a little bit about how you kind of induced adoption, right? Especially by customers walking in, members walking in your case, into your clubs. Mobile apps are not easy to get people to adopt. There's fatigue and having to download yet another app and yet another experience. But there's a lot of value that can be derived once you get on that experience, right? So how do you, especially in the retail, omni-channel kind of experience, right? How do you get them to do that?
Well, we like to start by meeting the member where the member is at. In other words, we try to create the many different options for where the member is at and what they are comfortable with. With our Curbside program, for example, you can order on samsclub.com. You can order on our app. Theoretically, you could even call the club and place an order. It's not preferred, but the point is that we try to create the channels as to where the members are today and where they're comfortable. We really want to meet them where they're at. But some experiences are better than others. And so we do want to drive adoption of certain channels for members because we think they'll have a better experience with it. One very nice thing about being in the membership model is we have fantastic data on our members. We have their transaction history. We know their purchasing patterns. We have email. We have lots of information. And so we're able to reach out to members in a very personalized way. That's a huge help when trying to drive adoption, being able to speak to members in a way that's relevant and personal and meaningful. We have a fantastic marketing team that does a great job of sitting with our product teams. We work in what we call experience teams. I've heard it referred to as the 3 legs of the stool or 4 in a box. For us, it's not about a number, it's about the roles. And obviously we have engineering, we have product, we have UX and design, but we also will have a business function. That could be operations, that could be merchandising. And finally, we always work with our marketing partners when it comes to, okay, what is the best way to communicate about this experience? What's the best way to brand it? And how do we best get the word out on all of those channels? When we launched Curbside, if you look at the data, it's just a straight linear adoption curve. The comps over last year have been just fantastic. It's a program that was really widely adopted and has really strong net promoter scores attached to it. So it's a great example of how we did it and made it accessible to members where they are at, but then we have been able to drive them to adopt in the channels that are most convenient, like on the mobile app or on samsclub.com.
Great. So maybe we could switch focus to, we've talked a little bit about the customer experience, but, how about your employee experience? I think, your associate experience, right? Looking inward, I'm sure you probably deliver more technology even on that side of the fence, so to say, than you do customer facing, right? So could you talk a little bit about automation, how, intelligent technologies like AI and ML and all, even mobile technologies have helped you, right? On that side.
Yeah, it's a huge focus for us. Let's start with the club. I mean, you're right. We have a huge number of products that are focused on our associates that are more internal facing. And again, I'll qualify this over and over again, because to us, nothing is purely internal. If we build an internal tool for a merchant or for an associate in the club, it's all about enabling them to provide a better member experience. But we have many of these products. And let's start in the club. Our associates in the club, there's one example I'll give you. I love this example because I think it's a really classic case study of product management done well. In our club, we used to have around 30 PCs or thin clients throughout the club. That's how we operated. And obviously, to get on a PC or to work on a thin client, you had to leave the sales floor. And at one point in time, we had somewhere around 15 reports that a merchandising associate could leave the sales floor and go and print any one of these reports. There were different kinds of inventory exceptions. They could be things like, hey, there's an item that should be selling at a certain rate that's not. We think you should go investigate that. Or it could potentially be a nil pick. A member ordered this, and when it came time to pick the order, the item wasn't available. Something's wrong. So inventory exceptions just refer in retail to something's gone wrong. You need to go investigate. And we had around 15 types of these reports. And our associates would leave the sales floor. That's problem number one. We want our associates on the sales floor where they can assist members and interact with members. But they would leave the sales floor and they would print these reports. And at times, any one of these reports could be hundreds of pages. Inventory in a store is very complex. So the operations function came to us and they said, hey, product and engineering, we need some help. We want you to put these 14 reports on a mobile app. And because of our emphasis in falling in love with the problem, we paused on that request from the business and we said, what is it that you're really trying to solve here? Is it really just about putting paper reports on an app, or is there a different problem that you're actually solving here? And when we really got to the bottom of it, what they were hoping for was, number one, let's keep associates on the floor. How do we solve that problem? And then number two, how do we help them prioritize what to work on? If they have 15 reports that are pages and pages long, no prioritization, it's just a lot of work, and we don't really know if there's getting value out of that work. So what we did was a very early on simple application of an algorithm that simply said, hey, rank these inventory exceptions based on the highest potential lost sales. So we had all of that data that was easy to calculate. And we just did a simple prioritization and said, this item will probably see the most lost sales if something doesn't change, if an intervention doesn't happen. As soon as we did that, we put it in a mobile app. It was very much an MVP. It was a little bit clunky. It wasn't a great experience, but they were able to stay out on the sales floor. And they started now to work around something that was likely the most important thing to be focusing on, as opposed to before, when who knows if it was something worth spending your time on as an associate. That early product, we call it Own Your Inventory, has evolved from there to a gamified app where associates go into it. They have goals that they try to hit. They have power bars they level up on. It's a really engaging experience. And the AI that we've brought to bear against that problem has now gotten so smart that associates work no more than around, I'd say, anywhere from 50 to 100 exceptions a day, whereas before it could be thousands. And we have full confidence that within that 50 and 100, they're working on items that actually need an intervention and will reduce lost sales if they work on that. So I love that example because, number one, it started with a request that turns out that wasn't really the problem they were trying to solve. But number two, it shows how when you do look at internal tools and products and you look at how you can remove friction, so you can look at it from the associate experience, not necessarily just the member experience, but you can look at the experience they're having and you can understand how to walk a mile in their shoes, have some empathy to all the friction that you've introduced into their life and getting their job done, and actually remove that friction and show incredible outcomes based on that. So now our associates are on the floor. They're providing better member experience. We've got much better net promoter scores from our members from in-club shopping trips, and they're working on the highest, the most important actions that they could be doing. We know that that's what they're working on. So we have many products that I could articulate that we work on, but I love that example because I really do think it's a great case study in good product management.
Great. And I think that's a terrific example of what you often call the PM superpower, right? In some sense. Tim, one final question as we come to the end of this session, is could you give some guidance to folks who want to jump into the product management role or who already are there and want to have more impact? The second part of that question is, if I'm a product startup and trying to pitch Sam's Club, what's the best route? What's your advice on some innovative technology I want to get in front of you, get in front of your team, right? For consideration.
Sure. Well, I'll start with that last question first. It's really interesting. We tend now to do more and more in-house. I can say a few years ago when we started in on this journey, we did have quite a few third-party partners, software as a service or off-the-shelf applications that we work closely with. More and more, I find that even when we do the really robust analysis on what is best, buy versus build, et cetera, we find ourselves building more often than buying. And I think that's a testament to the fantastic engineering quality that we've been able to recruit, as well as, fantastic product managers. Having said that, we do have a team that is a product team that's focused on innovation. Their job is to really be the tip of the spear and look at technologies that are pretty far out there. We have one club, we call it our Sam's Now Club. It's a smaller format and it's intended to be a shoppable app. And this innovation team puts all kinds of things into that club that we experiment around, everything from Internet of Things and different kinds of sensors in that club to computer vision at exit and all the way throughout the club. All kinds of different ways that we're learning on how we can apply technology to retail. So, there's potential to engage with an innovation product team like that, despite the fact that we find ourselves doing more and more in-house. To your first question about, how to jump into product management, I think it's really important that you read the right books, that you listen to the right podcasts, stay curious, constantly learn. In my mind, this dates me a little bit, but this is a fairly young field and it's constantly evolving. And I find it's really important to stay plugged in to the conversation that's going on. I learn something almost daily just by making sure that I'm taking the time to read and listen to what peers and other folks that are really good at this are doing. And then the other thing is just get the reps. I had one leader at one point in time in the product world who just said, Tim, get the reps. Sit in on every product review that you can, even if it's not something you're leading or managing. Ask permission to be a fly on the wall and listen in. Watch how others frame problems, how they solve problems. Watch the creative solutions they come up with. Learn from their mistakes and apply those things. So I would say for somebody who might not be in product now and wants to be, ask for permission to sit in on meetings. Ask if there's a menial task you could do to help out, and thereby getting the right to join the meeting and listening in from time to time. So I think, yes, stay curious and learn and listen to the experts and the conversation that's ongoing, but get your reps, find ways to get involved and listen and be a part of it.
Thank you, Tim. That's terrific guidance. I think, the osmosis of knowledge, right? You can only get that by, as you said, participating, volunteering, learning actively, right? I think, so Tim, just to summarize, I think, terrific points. Love the customer first, love the problem, put the customer at the center of all your experiences. I think, is your broad, thesis, I think, and, terrific. Thank you for spending the half hour with us. We really appreciate it. Tim Simmons, SVP and Chief Product Officer at Walmart Sam's Club. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi. It was fantastic to be here. I really enjoyed it.